Good evening, lady and gentlemen. Welcome again to another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. Once again, as I stated, I'm trying to do things much better from now on with my videos, even though I'm still in my bathroom studio. Again, I'm trying to get a better place to do recording in my house, but right now my house is just a big mess, so trying to set up either a place in my basement or a place in my attic that's better to take videos, but for now, we're still in my bathroom studio. So in my last video, my state of the channel video, I talked about in 2023, what I really want to focus on is upgrading some of my firearms for different furniture, different stocks, things like that, trying to make them better as we go along. Also trying to really whittle down, again, things that I'm not using, or at least try to take things that I don't use very often because they're either unpleasant to shoot or because I just don't really see a lot of value in them, and trade them in or upgrade them to make them something that I want to use. And just to have a quick story here, I had mentioned that, in the past, I may have let people kind of change my ideas on what I may have wanted for specific firearms. Going way back until 2015, when I first got my license to carry, one of the first rifles that I wanted to buy was an AK-47. And at the time, really good friend of mine who was into guns kind of talked me out of it. He basically said, "Oh, AK-47s aren't that accurate. They're sloppy guns. You'd be better off getting an AR-15. And I have one for sale, so why don't you buy mine?" So the first AR-15 that I ever bought came from a buddy of mine. That was an Anderson Manufacturing lower with who knows what kind of mil-spec trigger and parts like that in it. And it had a Smith & Wesson Sport 1 upper, or a M&P Sport 1 upper. So I think it was like a 1-in-7 or a 1-in-9 twist. I think it was a 1-in-9 twist, non-threaded barrel, standard A4 style sights and things like that. And it was a good enough gun. Used it for a couple years, sold it, and then, later on bought another AR-15, and I always still wanted to get an AK-47. But part of the problem is, in my state in 2016, our overreaching Attorney General decided to make it illegal to purchase from a shop any AR-15s or AK-47s that were not pre-ban, meaning they were not manufactured before the assault weapon ban in 1994. Buying a pre-ban version is very expensive, like prohibitively expensive, $2,000 to $3,000 per rifle. So I was able to find an AK-47 that I could afford. It was still not cheap. They're still quite a bit more expensive than they were a couple of years ago. And again, this is just because of the things that have happened in my state. So for me to get this particular gun was not easy. I'm not able to go out and buy like a Wasser 10 or one of the more desirable AK-47s. But what I was able to pick up, this is a Century Arms, which is made in Vermont. This is a fully US built AK-47, and this is a VSKA, which stands for Vermont Stamped Kalashnikov, I believe is what VSKA stands for. And I call it a Vishka because it sounds cool. And in Russia, they often turn their S's into H's and change the syllables on words and things like that. Now, this particular Vishka rifle did not come with the furniture that you see on it. This one came with plastic furniture. It was very cheap. I'll roll in some footage here in a little bit, but it came with plastic furniture. It was very cheap looking furniture. The bottom handguard had a bunch of, parts in it that were not really molded well. It was really crummy looking. I just didn't like the way it was. The stock itself wasn't too bad, like the butt stock, but I hated the handguards that were on it. And I've always wanted a classic looking AK-47, meaning one that had nice wood furniture that looked like a 1970s or 60s or something like that AK-47 rifle, something that came from a foreign country. So again, I wasn't able to afford that, but I was able to buy this Century Arms Vishka. And in form and function, it's a standard AK-47. It uses your standard magazines. This particular one is pinned to 10 rounds. Again, being the state that I'm in, I have to buy pre-ban magazines to be able to get something that will work in this that has a standard round count. But this one's pinned to 10 rounds, but it uses standard AK-47 magazines, 7.62 by 39. This one does have a mount for a scope or something like that on the side of it, which I will eventually get. The actual mount that slides on there goes over the dust cover and it has a rail on it. Standard style sights on here that go up to an optimistic 800 meters. It does have your, I think it's the S for the Battle Zero, and then between 100 and 800 meters on that rear sight. Front sight is adjustable for windage and elevation. Now, some of the things that I've noticed about this particular model is the front gas block on this and the front sight post is very different than what you see on most traditional AK-47s. This one looks more like it came off of a Draco AK pistol. It's very vertical. It has this hole drilled through the center of it. And I was told that this hole, you could actually use a QD sling that pops in there. However, none of the QD sling mounts that I have fit in this. This is actually bigger than that. So maybe they make this so you can stick a loop through that and just have a loop coming off for your sling as opposed to having, you know, the actual side loop on it. This is a threaded barrel. This one came with an A2 style bird cage, which I thought was kind of odd for an AK-47. It is a 14x1 left-hand thread, so I may change that muzzle brake at some point in time. However, I may just leave it alone because realistically, I think the A2 bird cages work perfectly fine. But in form and function, this is an AK-47. I mean, it has your standard safety, has your standard charging handle. Now, because this is a US made one, when Century Arms was importing and building the Wasser 10s and some of the other ones, because they're imports, in order to be compliant in the States, they had to make some of the components themselves. So this has a Century Arms trigger in it, which is actually a very nice trigger. It's just a little bit of springiness and then it hits a wall and breaks very cleanly. There's not a lot of over travel on it. The reset, about halfway out, and then it breaks right after the reset again. So the trigger on this is actually very, very good. It has an oversized magazine release lever down here. So you can see it has that nice big paddle. It's not only lower than a standard one, but it's quite a bit wider. But otherwise, like I said, it's just a standard AK-47. Take the dust cover off and you can see standard operating springs. Now again, I had looked at many different AKs, but there were very few that I could afford. If I wanted to get a vintage manufacturer pre-ban AK, like I said, it was cost prohibitive. It would have cost me $3,000 or $4,000. The only one besides this one that I had the opportunity to buy was actually a Saiga sporting rifle AK, which had a more traditional Monte Carlo style stock. It didn't have the pistol grip. That's the one that the whole trigger assembly has been moved back. They use proprietary magazines, and I could have got that one for a fairly good price from a friend of mine, but in order to turn it into something that looked like this with the correct furniture, the pistol grip and everything, it would have cost me another $350 to $400. So at that point in time, it wasn't a good deal. Even this one cost a lot more than I really wanted to spend on it, but again, just the fact that I could get one at all, it's still a lot less than what I could have bought one for a true pre-ban. So being that this one was purchased and able to be transferred, I was able to buy it. I did buy the wood furniture for this from Arms of America. That was about $130 for this. It's nice laminate wood stock, so you can see on there that it has that nice plywood look to it. I really actually like the way that that furniture looks because, again, it looks like it's aged and it kind of makes the gun look a lot nicer in my opinion. It does have the hole in the butt plate for the cleaning kit that I have not got yet. This particular one does not have the mount on the front of it for a cleaning rod to go down into the action. So this one does not have a cleaning rod. So again, it does look a little bit different than a more traditional AK-47, but all of the reports that I've seen from this online, if you look at Tim from the Military Arms channel, the AK guy, Brandon Herrera, he shot one of these on his channel, and there's been a couple other channels that did 5,000 and 6,500 round reviews on these particular guns, and they've run fairly well without, you know, very few issues. So I have fairly good confidence that this is going to be a good runner, and can't wait to take it out to the range and shoot it. But there you have it, the first real new gun video that I've done in 2023 would be my Century Arms VSKA 7.62x39 AK47. So I am so ecstatic to have this gun. I am very pleased to be able to bring this to you all. Like I said, I can't wait to get out to the range and shoot it. I appreciate you all for coming along and watching me on these ranting, raving videos. Have a great day from Cranky Gun Reviews. God bless America. Make sure you support your 2A rights. Get out there and shoot. And you remember that if somebody tells you to give up some of your freedom for the greater good, that freedom is the greater good.